If you're trying to build wealth by earning more money, you might be working way too hard and focusing on the wrong thing. There are only two levers to wealth building. There's how much money you make, and there's how much money you spend. That is the crux of this video. Which one of those two things do you think is easier to control? Pretty obvious when you think about it like that, right? Today, I'm going to show you why controlling your expenses is so much easier than controlling your income, and how much easier your path to wealth will be, and how much faster it can be if you simply control how much money you spend. As I mentioned, there are only two levers to this wealth building business. There's how much money you make, and there's how much money you keep. The wealth is in what you keep, not how much you make. I mean, if you ever listen to Dave Ramsey, you might hear that a lot of people that follow him have become 401k millionaires. And these are people that are school teachers. These are people that don't make extraordinary amounts of money, but they figured out the trick, and it's getting your spending under control. You will never be able to build wealth if you cannot get your spending under control. And I know it's harder and harder to do in our society because of things like social media. You see other people who used to just be keeping up with the Joneses, right? And that meant, what your neighbors are doing and what kind of car they had in their driveway. But now we see all of these things on social media, all of the extravagant trips people are taking, and the extravagant sports teams, the traveling sports teams their kids are on. All these ways that people spend so much money every month without even really thinking about it. So let's talk about us. We're women in midlife. Many of us are single, and we're realizing, you know what? Our retirement is all on us. There's no one coming to save us. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. It doesn't matter what the stock market is doing. This is why this is so powerful. If you can get your spending under control, it is way more powerful than getting in on an early AI stock or joining that company that's going to be a unicorn. Controlling your spending will outperform any of those things. And frankly, you don't need to worry about who's in the White House or what the stock market is doing if you can control your spending. If you have an outflow problem or if you have a spending problem, you're certainly not alone. And I'm not saying I'm a saint either. I have spent a lot of money myself. If I could just point out that raises are never guaranteed. And even when you get a raise, somehow it's always disappointing, isn't it? Or you get that year-end bonus. You count on it for months and months, and then you get it. And after taxes, you're like, that's it. And it's always disappointing. Promotions are hard to get. I know in my career, especially earlier on, I really only ever got promotions when I changed companies. And I know the older we get, it's not as easy to change jobs. It's not as easy to start over again. And frankly, it's just not as easy to get a new job when you're older, because if you think about this, if the hiring manager is a 35-year-old woman, do you think she's going to be more comfortable hiring someone close to her own age that's at the same phase of life she is, or someone who's closer to her mother's age? I mean, it's sad to say, but it's true. They would probably feel pretty awkward being the boss of someone who's the age of their mother. And that's not overt ageism, but it's a subtle thing, but it's very, very true. So getting that next new job, not something that I would really rely on. You can start a side hustle. Those can take a lot more time and energy than you may wish to expend at this time. And also, every dollar that you earn, you have to pay taxes on. So if you earn an extra $10,000 through a side hustle, you're only going to walk away with, 70% of that? So $7,000. And if you were able to cut your expenses by $10,000 in a year, all of that drops to your bottom line. If you think about that, it's so, so powerful. And could you save $10,000 this year? I'm saying yes, you can. It may not be easy. It may not be fun. It may not be living the way you're used to living, but my goodness, how powerful is that? I was a corporate accountant for 35 years, and I have been in a lot of rooms so every company starts out the year with a budget, right? They think how much they're going to spend in every category throughout the year. And then as revenue comes in and maybe the economy gets soft and maybe something else goes wrong, do you know what they do? The first thing they do? They go through the budget and they cut because they know it's a lot easier to control their expenses than it is the revenue. So they'll go through an open head count, they'll slash that. We don't need to go to that marketing conference. We don't need to spend this much on the Christmas party. They go on and on and on throughout the budget like that because it's something they can control. And I want you to think the same way about your own budget. It is something you can control. So if you were to set a goal for yourself, like saving $10,000 a year, how could you do that? Well, look at your fixed monthly costs. I mean, there's some things you can't really cut rent, right? It's too difficult to get out of a lease, a multi-year lease, etc. But what about you? One thing that is just so common is the lifestyle creep that we're all probably guilty of. You get up in your career and you think, I think driving a Lexus or a Mercedes would be pretty nice. And they're obviously very expensive. And I've read that the average car payment now is close to $800 a month. It's hard to save and invest when you have large outflows every month, and a car payment is just one of them. And I would implore you not to lease cars because then you never don't have a car payment. Best thing is to get a car, pay it off, and keep it as long as you can because your car payment is generally the second highest cost you have in a month. This is why some people look wealthy, the old big hat, no cattle thing. They have a nice big house and two fancy newer cars in the driveway. And if you're like me, you drive by and you're calculating how much their car payments are because I'm judgy like that. But the truth is, some people deliberately choose not to have car payments so they have more money to save and invest every month. Some people choose to have one car for two people instead of two, especially if you're retired. Do you really still need two cars? That's up to you, of course, but some people deliberately choose not to do these things, and then therefore they have more money left over. So think like them. I mean, are there things you could cut? I know for myself, I recently was tightening the belt again, and I thought, okay, when I moved to this new house, first I thought, okay, I'm going to have a cleaning lady come in because I deserve it. And if she came in twice a month, that was $300 a month. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to have my hair professionally colored. And I did that, but the haircut, it was so expensive. It had been so long since I'd had that done. And then I sat there and I thought, you know what? I'm just adding like $500-$600 to my monthly expenses. That's not going to help me win. So I went about a year without a cleaning person. And then I thought, well, what if I just have them come once a month? I live alone. I don't cook a lot. I'm not that dirty. So I'll just have them come once a month. And those are the sorts of things that I want you to think about. And for me, I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to color my own hair and I'll just get it cut professionally. And that saves a lot of money too. So instead of that $500-$600 outlay for a house cleaner and getting my hair done, I'm now going to spend, it'll be like $200 a month rather than the 5 or 6. And I still have someone cleaning my house for me, which is so nice. Think about this. If you were to cut your costs by $500 in a month, and that's not hard to do, that's $6,000 a year that you're dropping to your bottom line. Think about that. Think about how fast that money would grow. So $500 a month, what would that look like? Well, you could cut a streaming subscription. You could space out your haircuts more. You could opt not to buy something every time you're thinking of buying something. You could cut back on your groceries. If you have a meal subscription, cut that back. I think this is another Dave Ramsey thing, but he just said if people could get their food budgets under control, think how far that would go, because it's not only just eating out. Now we've got DoorDash and these other subscription boxes that come to our houses. So it's easier than ever to spend just so much money. And again, you don't have to give up your subscription box if it's HelloFresh or one of those. Just maybe cut it back. Instead of getting 4 meals a week, you get 2 meals a week and eat more leftovers. So it's easy to do if you think about ways to cut back. Just go through all of your expenses. Download all of your expenses from your credit card, or if you have an app, you can look at that. But Those apps cost money every month, don't they? So if you download the activity from your bank and your credit card, and then you just look at it, I think you'll be slightly nauseated when you look at how much money you have spent on things that have so little value. So that's a good exercise to do every month is just look at where your money went. When you cut costs, 100% of that drops to your bottom line. There's no tax impact to you. You get to keep the benefit of all of that cost saving. And I would suggest you divert money to, hopefully you're fully funding your 401k, but you can also fund an IRA on top of that. You could also set up a brokerage account on top of that and have money automatically go every month out to T Rowe or Fidelity or Vanguard or whoever you like to use, and just set up this fund. Of course, you have to make sure you have an emergency fund fully funded too, because those surprises happen. Your air conditioner will go out, you lose your job, your car needs a major repair. These things happen and you know they do. So pick one expense this month to focus on cutting. And I want you to give yourself a goal to cut $500 a month out of your spending and just see what you come up with. Again, you don't have to cut everything out altogether. Maybe, in my case, I choose to get pedicures once a month, but I do my own nails. Or, as I said, I color my own hair, but I get it cut. There are compromises you can make. Maybe you don't cut all of your streaming services. You keep one or two that don't cost that much and that you enjoy. So there's always a way to cut and not feel deprived. But it's so, so important that you learn to curb your spending because that is the number one most powerful thing you can do with your money. So that's it for me this week.